Anyways, to sum up my mastermode experience, I am beyond useless, and I am being carried by a femboy.
So if the Eater of Worlds were a real animal, it would likely function as a gigantic worm-like organism with regenerative.
Because Lord knows that my spirit animal is a pile of shit and I am absolutely garbage.
Wow, the worm-shaped worm acts like a worm.
You know, sometimes I wonder if God is punishing me for the audacity and arrogance I have to play Master Mode, especially since I haven't even completed Terraria solo on Journey Mode. I spent most of this fight behind the cuck chair watching the femboy god of Instagram try and beat the Eater Worlds into submission.
Hello everyone, hello. Today in this video I will be putting myself through literal hell by going through Master Mode for the first time. I completed Expert Mode with a friend only through the grace of God.
And not only will I be torturing myself by playing Master Mode, I will also be explaining the Worm of Worm, the Eater of Worlds, while also playing Master Mode and with the squishiest class, the Summoner's class. I have been playing Ranger for so long, and you know what, I thought to myself, I might as well give myself a try and play a new class. But boy oh boy, am I sure that this will be a mistake that I will come to regret and use as an excuse to lash out at my friends, family, wife, and children. So if you would like to see my sanity decline at a rapid rate, at record level rates, then please stick around for the video and watch me lose my sense of self, pride, and dignity. But to make sure that I have just enough sanity to record this video, I will also be playing with this femboy that I found off of Instagram, because Lord knows that my spirit animal is a pile of shit and that I am absolutely garbage, and that I can never be able to get this far without them. So shout out to Soybean Bird Gundrop, follow them on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter, or also our guy Jeffrey, yes, that is his actual name, will be sending you to a certain island. Before we start this video, let me explain my Master Mode experience. The science portion is on the timestamp on the screen if you'd like to skip to that. So, Master Mode. It is literally hell. There's no way around it. I think if there was like a super hell that Satan could go to if he died, it would be Master Mode. No wiki, solo. Also, some of the footage from this video got corrupted because why wouldn't it, the beginning portion? And also, if you hear like any strange noises in the background, I am so sorry. So, much of the stuff we did was missed. Now, when I'm narrating my journey, I want you to keep one phrase in the back of your mind. All roads lead to Rome. So essentially up to this point, I'm losing my mind because I'm weak as hell with a whip made out of dirty toilet paper with the range of a wet noodle. And this will not do for the Eater Worlds. No. So I go to the jungle to attempt, keyword attempt, to get a Snapthorn. You already know the results of that though. So then I'm like, okay, I'll go see if Abigail wants to finally spawn in. And of course, she does not. Abigail is acting like I gave her sister testicular torsion and that I waterboard her mother. It has been 6 hours that I've been doing this, and we have only gotten one flower, which I rightfully gave to a femboy because he's carrying me throughout all of this. Because if you couldn't tell by the gameplay, I'm genuinely useless. So I'm basically waiting for a summon that does 1, sometimes 2 damage just to go into a jungle. But oh wait, the flower doesn't want to spawn. So I'm basically forced to go into a jungle, basically butt naked apparently, because armor means nothing, and get touched in places I don't want to be touched. And I can't even defend myself because I have the equivalent of a paper towel in my hands. So I get bored of waiting and I go to the mine. Maybe get some heart crystals and some better items. Nope. You know what? That was my bad for thinking that I can get any form of progression in Terraria, especially in Master Mode. It's my fault for ever thinking that I could maybe stop being useless and actually get some good items. My fault. So, butt naked with my paper towel in hand, I go back to the jungle to try and get the Snapthorn again. And after 2 hours, many threats to my martyr, and many more deaths, I finally get the Snapthorn. I was so happy. It felt like I was finally making progress. I'm so much stronger and I have so much more range. I can maybe stop being useless. And we go on to fight the Eye of Cthulhu without an arena, and we even get the Flink Staff and the Flink's Fur Coat for an extra minion slot. And we even start setting up pylons so that we wouldn't have to walk the equivalent from Canada to Point Nemo. And I can maybe make some progress and finally get some good footage that doesn't make me look like a complete trash bag. Now, I want you to ask yourself this question. Where is all this footage? Is it A, I forgot to use it, B, I accidentally deleted it, or C, the 3 hours of footage I had got corrupted, so I tried to put it into a file repair system that took 2 hours to finish repairs and then charged me $22 to get it back with a watermark? Well, folks, I'm sure you can tell the answer, but if you can't, the correct answer is C, I hate my life. You know, sometimes I wonder if God is punishing me for the audacity and arrogance I have to play Master Mode, especially since I haven't even completed Terraria solo on Journey Mode. But you know what? Divine punishment aside, we did all that stuff. And me and my femboy companion decided to fight the poop-colored worm with eyes. All you need to know is that all roads lead to Rome. I spent most of this fight behind the cuck chair watching the femboy agave on Instagram try and beat the Eater Worlds into submission. But sadly, the power of femboys was not enough. So we went down to hell to get maybe the Imp Staff and Hellstone Armor. But obviously Terraria had to remind me of how absolutely incompetent I am before I could get any of those things. But we did get them. And this time, things turned out very differently. Not the me being absolute useless part. No. That'll never change. I was still confined to a cuck chair, but the femboy actually won, and the Eater Worlds fell to my femboy in shining armor. So again, please do check out Soybeanberg Gundrop on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitch. And yeah, tell them hi and tell them Professional Kirby is very grateful for being carried. Anyways, to sum up my Mastermode experience, I am beyond useless, and I am being carried by a femboy. And I hate this. I hate Master Mode. I don't ever want to do this again. But if you guys like me suffering, then I will do more for your entertainment, because I am a slave to attention. So yeah, like and sub if you want to see me suffering more. And yeah, on to the science portion. Eater of Worlds. Let us analyze this worm. The main feature of the Eater of Worlds is being able to be cut, and the cut segment can become two new genetically identical beings. So how does this work? Well, to do this, let's look at flatworms. Flatworms have something known as PCGs, or position control genes, which tell the cells in the body where they are, what to maintain, and what to repair. So basically, if a flatworm gets cut, it'll have a massive amount of gene expression, specifically the position regrow genes that say, hey, our ass was just cut off, we need to regrow that. If they didn't have these position regrow genes, then they wouldn't be able to regrow the lost part properly, or they would just stop growing entirely. These PCGs are generally expressed by the muscle cells in the planarian, the flatworm. So when regeneration happens, flatworms have these things known as neoblasts, which are adult stem cells. Stem cells, if you didn't already know, are cells that can differentiate into many different types of cells. There are different types of stem cells, which I won't be going over, but neoblasts are pluripotent, meaning that they can become any type of cell. So when a planarian's ass gets cut off, its neoblasts migrate to a wounded area, and the cells will clump up to make a little bump known as a blastema. The cells in the blastema will then start to differentiate on their own into the exact cells that the planarian needs for that region, whether it be muscle, nerve, or digestive cells. Now, if we only use this, we would only be making a new worm, but we need to make two new worms. So we have a process known as morphollaxis. Morphollaxis, unlike normal regeneration, where you would just create a giant mass of cells and have them differentiate, the two areas that split basically go through a process where they recognize, oh, we need a new head, or oh, we need a new tail, so let's regrow that. So they regrow those areas and become two new organisms. Initially, they're small, but they can regrow on their own. So essentially, filling in the missing pieces. So if the Eater of Worlds has all this, then how is it able to die? Well, game logic, but also it's also kind of hinted in the game. In the game, the Eater of Worlds has a ton of segments, but if you destroy those segments enough, then the Eater of Worlds gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And once it's small enough, it'll get to a point where it has no more neoblasts and it can't regenerate anymore. In flatworms, there's only so many neoblasts that they have, so they can only regenerate so many times. But most of the time, since they're really good at regenerating, they can regenerate from as little as only 4,000 cells and 160 neoblasts. For reference, your eye has 137 million cells, so being able to regenerate from 4,000 cells is absolutely insane. Now let's go over anatomy. Flatworms and most other worms survive in moist areas because that's how they breathe. What do I mean? Well, flatworms and most other worms take in oxygen through their skin because they don't have a circulatory system, so they can't just pull oxygen from air. Instead, they use diffusion. The oxygen gets dissolved in water, and then they use a diffusion gradient where the oxygen goes from high concentration to low concentration, high being in the water and low being in their bodies. And then they can absorb that oxygen in the water through their skin, which is just 0.5 micrometers thick. Now, in general, worms live underground to be able to breathe. They'll build burrows and then bury themselves in dirt because the soil is usually moist, but they do come up if it starts to rain. This explains why the Eater of Worlds is stuck in the earth. It wants to be in a moist environment so it can breathe properly. They also bury themselves in order to eat. Worms typically
basically eat a ton of dirt and minerals inside the soil to keep themselves fed, but they also are carnivorous and hunt down other invertebrates. Also, you see those little spitballs that are coming at you from the eater of worlds? Those are digestive enzymes, which most worms have, meaning that he's preparing to consume you. Makes a lot of sense. A lot of worms will secrete enzymes outside of their body so that they can break down tough food so that they can digest it, and this is known as extracorporeal digestion. Now let's move into its method of hunting. It isn't really stated, but I have a good reason to believe that the eater of worlds is an ambush predator. This is because, well, it's form of summoning. To summon the eater of worlds, you have to destroy 3 shadow orbs, which yield resources that you need to progress. Once you destroy these shadow orbs, the eater of worlds will sense those orbs being destroyed and immediately go at you, which you would only know that the summons the Eater Worlds is if you read the wiki or if you already played the game before. And honestly, it's probably not just you who have fallen victim to it, but other prey as well. The Shadow Orbs may be some type of resource for other animals in the corruption as well, so naturally they'll gravitate to that resource because it seems free. And once the animal gets tons of resources, they'll realize, oh, this is just free. So it'll break more and more and more, and eventually they'll summon the Eater Worlds, and the Eater Worlds will catch it when it least expects it. A good example of this in nature is green herons. Green herons are smart ass birds. They'll drop little objects into water, like bread crusts, twigs, and sticks, to lure out fish so that they can catch and eat them. There's also burrowing owls that smear shit onto their nests so that dung beetles will be attracted to it and eat it, and then the owls can then eat the dung beetles. What also, I believe, supports its way of hunting, being an ambush predator, is its fangs. The Eater of Worlds is very similar to bobbit worms, which are known to hide in burrows and only let out a bit of their head, and once a prey comes, the bobbit worm has fangs that act like clamps to capture their prey, which is why I believe the fangs on the Eater of Worlds may be for to prevent their prey from escaping once it realizes what it's gone into. Let's also think about energy usage. To move around a body like that, a nice, thick, slimy, long body like that, the Eater of Worlds has to be expending a ton of energy because the Eater of Worlds has a body that is over 100 meters long. So of course it takes a ton of energy to move around. He's also not getting a bunch of food, if we're being honest. The terrarium is definitely not a meal that's big enough to satisfy the Eater of Worlds' hunger, and even if it ate other animals in the corruption, I highly doubt that it would be able to feed a body that big. So it would be using up a ton of energy and not getting much of that energy back in return. So how does it compensate? Probably through not moving much. Eater of Worlds only comes out when the shadow orbs are destroyed, meaning that the rest of the time it's most likely asleep to lower its metabolic rate and not consume much energy. And then as soon as a prey destroys those shadow orbs, it just has this burst of metabolic energy so that it can ensure that captures that prey. Now, these features, they're pretty easy to explain, but the one thing that's insanely confusing is why the Eater of Worlds has so many eyes. The Eater of Worlds, as I said before, lives underground, and the corruption biome is generally dark with no light whatsoever. So why would you need eyes? There is nothing to see whatsoever, so how would it find its way around? Not only that, the eyes are just a hindrance since it uses up so much energy. And to put in perspective, in cavefish, to maintain their eyes, that costs like 5 to 70% of their metabolic rate, which is absolutely insane. Now, all animals are different, but that's still a hell of a lot of energy, especially when there's like 300 different eyes all over it. It would be more understandable if it was like constantly above ground, if it wanted to make sure it knew what was happening around it at all times. Since it's so long, it may not have the luxury of knowing what's happening on each segment. But regardless, most creatures that live in the dark have no eyes because they'd rather put energy into heightening their senses. But I do have one theory for this. I think that these eyes, rather than being functional eyes, they may be just clumps of light sensitive cells. For example, with flatworms, they have 2 small eyes where their quote unquote head is supposed to be. Those 2 small eyes are light sensitive cells that help them to navigate their way around. What's especially interesting is how some of those flatworms also have a contingency if they lose those eyes and are no longer able to see. They have light sensitive cells all over their skin so that their body can tell them where exactly that light source may be. This is most likely what's happening with the Eater of Worlds, because I imagine that the Eater of Worlds probably loses its segments a lot since, well, they're carnivorous and the prey may sometimes fight back. So this may be an adaptation to make sure that each segment is okay. So it may only be things that look like eyes rather than being actual eyes. So if the Eater of Worlds were a real animal, it would likely function as a gigantic worm-like organism with regenerative abilities similar to planarians. Wow, the worm-shaped worm acts like a worm. Using neoblast stem cells, position control genes, and morphollaxis, each segment can potentially regenerate into a new individual, which explains its splitting behavior. Its underground lifestyle would help it to breathe through diffusion, conserving moisture, and ambushing prey, while its digestive enzymes and fang-like mouthparts would make it a effective predator. To deal with the enormous amount of energy that their body demands, since it's over 100 meters long, it would probably spend most of its time inactive and only become active when the prey is probably detected. Even its strange abundance of eyes could be explained as light-sensitive structures spread throughout its body rather than having true eyes. And while there are some mysteries that are difficult to explain, many of the Ear of World's most iconic features actually have a surprisingly realistic biological counterpart. So despite being a giant eldritch worm from hell, it may be a lot closer to a real animal that you might think. And that is the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for sticking around for so long, and thank you for watching. Yeah, thank you. And go check out Soybeanberg Gun Drop again. They are amazing. They made these amazing stills for me that I'm planning to use going forward. They posted it on Instagram, so please go check it out. And yeah, thank you guys again. See ya.